Hi, it's Kevin. I am leaving Bloomington Normal, Illinois, on my way to Chicago to catch my flight to Portland and eventually on to Hood River later tonight to start brewing at Full Sail Brewery tomorrow. So looking forward to my cuisine internship. I'll keep you updated. I got in about 7:30, and so I decided to stop at a place a friend had told me about called McMenamin's Edgefield. For they've got a brewery here, so I'm gonna stop in and check it out.
I say she never cared and that she never will. Do it all again. I guess I'll have to wait until then.
I got to my room here in Hood River at the Best Western Hood River Inn. A little surprised when I got to my room. The folks from Full Sail had left an awesome welcome package in here. So I'm going to crash, and I'm really looking forward to hitting the brewery and brewing up some beer tomorrow. Here I am in Hood River. I'm here for the first morning of my cuisine internship at Full Sail Brewing. It's right in front of me here, and I'm going to head in and see what the cuisine internship is all about.
This is their brew board, which tells them what's in each of their 23 fermenters and what they'll be brewing this week. Just to the right of it is the brew deck, where all the magic happens. The day I was there, a grain shipment came in. I got to go out on top of the truck and help get the grain checked in. We took a taste of the grain just to see what it was like before we checked it in. From there, it was transferred from the truck into the outside holding bins. When it's needed for the brew, it's transferred by air from the outside into the weighing bin seen here. Once it's all weighed out according to the recipe, the brewer hits the button and the grains move from the weighing bin over to the mill, where it's crushed and then moved by air over to a grist tank in the brew house. The grist tank holds it until it's needed for the brew. When the mash tun is finally at the right temperature, it moves up this blue conveyor belt where it drops into the mash tun. However, it's mixed with water in a circular motion to make sure all the malt is hydrated as it drops into the mash tun. This particular batch was the IPA, so we were mashing in at 156 degrees. The brewer uses the computer on the brew deck to adjust the temperature on the steam jacket. However, the water that's hydrating the grain going into the mash tun is adjusted by using these hot and cold levers. Once it moves from the mash tun over to the lauter tun, they vorloft and start to move the wort over into the kettle. The brewer has to watch this flow meter for the sparge to find out how much water is going in, as well as monitor temperature and adjust manually the hot and cold temperature of the sparge water. Here, they can adjust the temperature if needed. They also watch these flow meters to find out how much wort is moving over from the lauter tun into the kettle. Here, you can see the wort flowing into the kettle, as well as the steam jacket that's used to heat up the wort. It takes about 2.5 hours of sparging to fill the kettle with about 7,000 gallons of wort. They bring it up to a boil, and they use this China hat to make sure to keep the boil rolling. They use a computer to monitor the temperatures and the time that the ingredients need to be added along the way. Here, you can see me adding the finishing hops to the IPA we were brewing that day. I added about 260 pounds of pelletized hops into the boil.
She called me late last night, say she loved me so.
They wouldn't give me the recipe, but I did see that we were adding Summits, Centennials, and Cascades as the finishing hops in the IPA.
All again, I guess I'll have to wait until then. If I get drunk, well, I'll pass out on the floor now, baby. You won't bother me no more. And if you're drinking, well, you know that you're my friend, and I'll say, I think I'll have myself a beer.
260 pounds of hops. All right.
Let's see that. Let's not drop it.
When the boil's finally finished, the wort's moved from the kettle down into the whirlpool, which is located just below the kettle.
Here, you can see a larger view of what the brew deck looks like from down below. Here's what about 600 pounds of hops looks like when it's finished in the whirlpool. After the whirlpool, it moves through this heat exchanger, which is actually about the size of a car. Attached to the heat exchanger are more flow valves, which tell the brewer how much wort is actually coming out of the whirlpool. It's transferred down here, into the cellar, and into one of these fermentation tanks located down here. Full Sail, as I mentioned, has about 23 fermentation tanks, both inside and outside of their building. These are glycol-cooled fermentation tanks. This tank here is actually the yeast mixer, where we mixed up about 1,500 pounds of yeast for the IPA that we were moving over. Here, you can see 3 other tanks, which hold about 60 barrels of yeast for future batches. Once we transferred the yeast over into the fermentation tank, we used these pumps to pump over the wort that was going through the cooler into the fermentation tank seen here. Full Sail has several different size fermenters, anywhere from 500 barrels to about 800 barrels. They said that they had just purchased 4 800-barrel fermenters to go outside of their building at a cost of about $1 million last year. This increased their output to about 200,000 barrels each year. Once fermentation is complete, the beer moves through this complex series of pipes and through a hard particle filter, which filters out most of the leaf hops that might go through. They tell me that when they do the IPA, they have to stop and empty this filter about 3 or 4 times. It moves through here to this centrifuge filter, which you see here. This actually spins at a high rate of speed and knocks particles out so that what comes out of it is clear beer. It's controlled by this control panel, which monitors how much beer is going through, which, as you can see here, is about 3 to 4 barrels a minute. Before it goes over to the centrifuge filter, it actually goes through this network of pipes, which monitors CO2 in the beer. Once it goes through the centrifuge filter, it moves over into these 650 barrel bright tanks, which hold the beer until it's ready for bottling or kegging. They constantly measure the CO2 levels in these bright tanks so that they have natural carbonation in their beer. They also have an extremely large keg cooler and hop storage area. In here, you can see where they keep their kegs cold for the restaurant upstairs, as well as the rest of the kegs before shipping. On the shelves, you can see the huge number of pallets of hops that they keep on hand, as well as some of the vintage beers. Here, they keep a sample of every single bottle that comes off the line for at least 6 months. They also have some barrels that they're keeping cold, as well as some vintage beers for different beer festivals. Full Sail also has a lab on site which staffs 3 people, where they measure everything from oxygen in the beer to how it ages in the bottle. Here you can see where they measure bacteria and samples of wort. They also have some very cool machines. This is called a beeralyzer. You put in a few drops of beer and it measures everything from alcohol content to IBUs. It was a wonderful 2 days brewing in Hood River, but the next day I headed to Portland to brew at their 20-barrel brew house there. It was another gorgeous drive back up the gorge where I passed Multnomah Falls, one of the most scenic spots in all of Oregon. Jamie, the brewmaster at Full Sail, actually drives this route from Portland to Hood River every Monday and Tuesday. Full Sail River Place is actually only about an 800 square foot brew house. Again, it's 20 barrels, and here you can see their mash tun, brew kettle, whirlpool, 3 fermentation tanks, and a bright tank. We were brewing a Belgian double that day, and as you can see, the mash barely fit in the mash tun. One of the coolest features of the brew house was that after we were finished lautering, we actually had to pour the mash tun out to get the grain out of it. I jumped in and helped out wherever I could, even hopping into the mash tun and scrubbing it out. That evening was the Brewmasters Dinner, an event for the brewmasters and brewers from the 81 breweries participating in the Oregon Brewers Festival. I got a chance to hang out with the Widmer brothers, Kurt and Rob, and Jamie Emerson, Full Sail brewmaster, and CEO Irene Fermat, as well as Bridgeport brewmaster Carl Ockard, Jamie Floyd, Ninkassi's brewmaster, and the brewmasters from Widmer and Deschutes. The next morning was the Oregon Brewers Festival Brunch and Parade, where we marched through the streets of Portland, stopped at City Hall to pick up the mayor, along with the ceremonial first keg, which he tapped at the event.
Ballot for the 2010 Oregon Brewers Festival to Mayor Sam Adams.
Yes, you heard that correctly. The mayor of Portland is named Sam Adams.
I'm privileged to be the mayor of Beervana. We're an innovative place. We're a place that's good for the environment, and we're a place that's committed to quality and having fun, and that's a great part of what this industry is about. So I am pleased to try not to break the mallet this year as I tap. Thank you.
After all that fanfare, it was finally time to jump in and try some of the beers at the Oregon Brewers Festival. They had 10 tractor-trailer trucks full of kegs to try. One of the highlights was the Buzz Tent, where Full Sail had a 1997 Russian Imperial Stout brewed by brewmaster John Harris, who I brewed with earlier that day. It was a packed event on Friday and Saturday, and there were plenty of beers to try from across the country and all around Oregon. On Saturday, it got a little crowded, so I headed over to take the tour of Widmer Brewery. They have a 250-barrel brew house. I was told that Widmer built this showplace of a brewery for about $22 million just a few years ago. Here, you can see their mash tun and lauter tun. They have a work area here, and I was told that each one of those hydrometers is worth $500. You can also see their whirlpool and brew kettle. They had a state-of-the-art kegging line with 2 huge robotic arms to pick up kegs, as well as a top-of-the-line German bottling system. Their fermentation tanks were the largest I'd ever seen, holding 1,500 barrels each with room for 4 more. I headed back to the Oregon Brewers Festival for the last day of activities. As you can see, the Brewers Festival actually took up about a 4-block area across the Portland riverfront. I headed back in and was told I should check out this display from the Portland Homebrew Club, which is their 10-barrel mobile system complete with a flat-screen TV. The other side actually came equipped with 8 taps and works as a live working bar and a flat-screen TV on that side as well. As you can see, this truly was the beer trip of a lifetime. I can't thank the folks at Travel Oregon and Full Sail Brewery enough. Cheers.